From TAGTV, welcome to Panorama. I'm your hostess, Ghada Hamadani. Today we'll tackle life after politics exit. My guest has been very active in community service since his early age. He is the Director of Government Relations for the Mississauga Board of Trade and the former MP of Streetville. He is a Brad Butt. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you, Ghada. Great to be here.
My pleasure. Brad, you've been in public square and, it's like very much involved in your community service. Why is that?
You know, at a very young age, I guess when I was an early teenager, I was very interested in what was going on in my community and what was going on in our country, and certainly following things that were going on even around the world. And I wanted to be involved. I wanted to be involved in making a difference and in working with other people to do some great things and some good community service, particularly in the city of Mississauga, which was is still a very young city and needed lots of volunteers to help the city build and grow, and that's how I got involved, and I'm delighted. I think volunteering is one of the key things we all should be doing.
And how old were you, like when you started, volunteering?
Oh, I was probably 12 or 13, I guess, when I started, but I really got my initial interest in community service by joining and becoming a member of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee. So Hazel McCallion, former mayor of Mississauga, put a youth advisory committee together, wanted young people to get involved in the future of the city, and that's where I was able to get involved.
Okay, where did you serve?
I've served on dozens of different boards and community organizations over many different years. When I got my interest in politics, the first time I ran for a position on Mississauga City Council, I was only 21 years old and only lost that race by a couple of hundred votes at the time. So I've always kept up my involvement in things ever since then, and here we are today, 51 years old, and still involved in things in the community.
Yeah, it's like I know. So what did you study, like before you get involved in?
Well, I obviously went to high school, and I was very active in my high school too. I was president of the student council, and I became the valedictorian of the graduating class in 1986. I went on to the University of Toronto, Mississauga. I took political science and French. I didn't finish with a degree. I decided to leave and get into the private sector, and never looked back. Got into the property management business and had a long career in the housing sector before I got into politics.
Okay. In your opinion, what do you think gets people jazzed by and get innovated by in community service?
I think most people get involved in community service and volunteer because they want to see things happen in their community. They see a problem that they want to fix. They see an area of underserviced in the community, and they want to make a difference. They want to meet other people who want to see things happen in their community. And then they get involved. So, there's so many great ways you can get involved in your community. And I always say to young people when I talk to them about volunteering, do something you're passionate about. If you've got an issue you're concerned about, great, get involved. It doesn't matter what it is. You're making a difference in your community. So I always say to people, find something that's in your passion, something you care deeply about, and get involved.
Is there a flip side for it?
Well, the flip side is it's a lot of work. I mean, often when you agree to volunteer to be involved in a community organization, it can become overwhelming. And I certainly know some of the organizations I've been privileged to volunteer with in the past and presently. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of extra time. You have your own life. You might have a job. You may have a business to run, and now you're and a family to raise, and then you're also volunteering. So it's a lot of time. But you have to look at it as time well invested, that you are making a difference. You're making your community a better place to live, and you're helping other people.
I believe you served at this community safety, Mississauga Community Safety.
Yes, I served as the founding chair of what was the Mississauga Crime Prevention Association. In the mid-1990s. And then when Mississauga City Council decided to revamp their whole focus on crime prevention, they created an organization which still exists today called Safe City Mississauga. And I was the founding chair of that organization in early 2000. And an organization like Safe City Mississauga is so important because the police can't do it on their own. They need the community involved in crime prevention and in running community-based programs that keep our community safe and invest in our young people and invest in initiatives that will discourage criminal activity in our neighborhoods. So yeah, that's one of the organizations I got to start with, and proud to see it flourish still today.
So how do you evaluate the safety of the community right now, you know, it's like these days?
Well, you know, we're in a 24-hour news cycle, so we hear about everything all the time. We hear about every incident that takes place. I still believe Mississauga, Peel region, is still a very safe place to live, to work, to raise a family. But there's no doubt that that violent crime is on the rise. I think we have a significant, unfortunate problem with gangs and some of the violence that is associated with that. But if we work together as a community, if we support our police, our women and men who serve us in our police service, and support community initiatives, I think this will continue to still be one of the safest places in Canada to ever live.
Well, I know you, it's like for years now, and we've been to Iraq together.
We were in Iraq together,
yes. Yeah. And you've been there several times. You visited the camps of the displaced people, and you were part of, you know, the Canadian delegations. So can you tell me, it's like, more about that? Because, you know, it's like that's different community, but you still, you know, it's like you were involved, you know, it's like heavily involved in that, and you helped a lot.
So I was very fortunate when I served as a member of Parliament to have been invited to go to, initially to Erbil, Iraq. It was several weeks after the first time I went, several weeks after the rise of ISIS in the region, in that northwestern quadrant, the Kurdistan region of Iraq, and unfortunately see the devastation that terrorist organization was able to inflict upon the people living in that area, the Kurds, the Yazidis, and others who suffered unspeakable terrorist atrocities against them as ISIS was trying to build its network and its presence. So I was there. I was fortunate to go as a member of Parliament to be able to meet with the both internally displaced individuals within Iraq, and then later was able to meet actually Syrian refugees and others who were also in Iraq because they had been displaced obviously from what's been going on in Syria, the civil war in Syria, for many, many years. So it's a very humbling experience to meet with people in refugee camps, to sit, you know, on a blanket, really on the dirt, with tents all around, and actually listen to their stories, listen to their plights. And I think it's important that Canadian parliamentarians went, because Canada has a lot of moral authority in the world. We're a very well-respected country. We welcome refugees into this country. We embrace immigration in this country from people all over the world. So our reputation around the world is excellent. And I was very fortunate, as I say, during my time as a member of Parliament to have been able to go over there and offer what assistance we could as the Canadian government at the time to support those people.
Okay, it's like what that experience added to you, it's like as a member of Parliament. It's like what did it add to your life, you know, it's like to your, it's like as MP. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot, because, and I will never forget that trip as long, you know, those trips as long as I live, because again, it was a very humbling experience to see people. When you think about how lucky we are to live in Canada, in a country of peace and security and compassion, and see that versus what people around the world are going through, it really puts things into context for you as an individual, that I could come back to Mississauga or to Ottawa and live peacefully and safely and have food on my table every day and be able to raise my family, and then see the plight of individuals who may never be able to go back to their home. May never, we're hoping, that's always the hope, is that refugees and displaced persons can go, they want to go home. They want to go back to their home, but they certainly can't if it's not safe and peaceful. So, you know, I look at all the things I got to do as a Member of Parliament. That type of international travel will always be one of the highlights and one of the special parts of my term of serving as a Member of Parliament.
After the break, we'll get back to you with a wrap up.
All natural sweetener, Flavorall. 20 flavors to choose from. The perfect substitute for sugar and artificial sweeteners.
Flavorall by Greenish.
Flavorall from Greenish, now available at Rexall pharmacies.
Welcome back, and we'll continue with you, Brad. So, Brad, you served as Member of Parliament between 2011 and 2015. So, right now, how is your life after you exit the politics life?
Well, when you serve as a Member of Parliament, it really is an all-consuming responsibility. I mean, when the House of Commons is in session, you're leaving your home in Mississauga like I did every week and fly to Ottawa and spend 3 or 4 days in Ottawa, and then leave again to come home on the weekend. And then on most weekends, there are many events and meetings that you're getting to throughout the community. So it really is a 7-day-a-week job most of the year in the work you do. It's very rewarding work, but it's a huge challenge, and it's extremely time-consuming. Then all of a sudden there's an election. In my particular case, I was not re-elected. The Canadians wanted a change in government, and that's fine. We live in a democracy, and we accept the results from our election campaigns. And so literally the day after the election's over, you're it. You're done. You're no longer a Member of Parliament. You're done. You clean up your office, and basically you go back into the private sector or back into your private life as you used to have. It's a big transition. It's a big change, because you have for 4.5 years, in my case, done one thing constantly, you know, every day of the year that is very public, very profile, to then go back into doing something different. So it takes a bit of a transition time. So I had some downtime, and that's nice too, to be able to have a bit of a break. And then you go on and you do something else, which obviously I'm doing now in my role at the Mississauga Board of Trade, and back volunteering and working with a number of excellent community organizations again that I'm pleased to be a part of, and still living here in Mississauga and staying involved.
Yeah. Well, you said it's rewarding. So what did you mean by it's like it was rewarding? It's like we're not talking financially. It's like we're talking about...
No, it's personally rewarding just to be able to know that you've able to help hundreds and hundreds of people with issues that they've had with the federal government over a period of time. That you've worked on important pieces of legislation that I hope have made Canada more prosperous, safer, healthier, because those are the kinds of bills that we work on in Parliament. To have served and worked in the government of former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, and a lot of the work that we did there that I'm still very immensely proud of. That's the rewarding part of knowing you were able to be a part of public service, to give back to your community, to your country. And that is certainly something in my lifetime I'll continue to be very proud that I had the opportunity to do.
Is there any, it's like achievement that you always, think of, or it's like you're proud of while you were at the Parliament serving?
Yeah, I was able to get a motion passed in the House of Commons with all party support, which is very uncommon to get all the political parties. So that was Conservative, NDP, Liberal, and Elizabeth May from the Green Party that all agreed to support a motion that I put forward to dedicate the month of April as Genocide Awareness, Prevention, and Condemnation Month. So as they say, it passed through the House of Commons with no objection, and that is now, that month is now recognized in our country to recognize the 5 significant genocides that we've seen in the history of the world, and to make sure that we never forget, that we learn from those atrocities in the history of the world, and that we commit to ensure that those kinds of things never, ever happen again. So that was a very proud moment for me, because very few resolutions like that are passed in the House of Commons with all party support. So that proved that I could work with the other political parties in the House to actually get something meaningful done.
So what are the 5 genocides you mentioned in the...
So you have the Holodomor, you have the Holocaust, you have the genocide in what was the former Yugoslavia, you have Rwanda, and you have the...
Armenia, no?
and the Armenian, of course, the Armenian genocide. So those were the 5 that were recognized. Parliament had already previously recognized all of those 5. Since then, we've had the Yazidi genocide, which could certainly be added to that if Parliament decided to do that. I would have no personal objection to that. I'm not there anymore, but you could certainly add those on. I think we've seen some others. I think the plight of the Rohingya Muslims is another one that I think is rising to, if not already at, what could be considered genocide. In the attacks against them in Myanmar. So you know, there's unfortunately in the world we don't always learn our lessons. Yes. And the old saying, you know, if you ignore history, you're doomed to repeat it. So I think it's important that we focus on these kinds of things to make sure that these things do not happen ever again to any group of people. For any group of people in the world, for any reason, for faith-based, culturally based, these kinds of things are completely unacceptable in our world, and we pray that they never happen again.
While you're taking back seats, so how do you view politics right now?
I think in Canada we still have a very robust, strong democratic system. We can agree and disagree on issues. I can agree with things Prime Minister Trudeau and his government does, and I can disagree with them, and I think we can have healthy debate. I'm worried about the United States. I think the level of political discourse in the United States is atrocious. I think the way that we have seen a number of the political actors, not just the president, but others as well, in the way that they enter into political discourse, I think is disgraceful, and actually lowers the bar on what public service should be. Public service should be a very high calling. To serve your country, your community, it should be the highest calling you ever have. When we dumb it down, when we use language it's completely inappropriate, when we call each other names because we think that's how we score points, I'm very discouraged by that kind of thing. And then I look at young people and I say, well, why would you want to even serve in this, knowing you're going to be personally attacked? People are going to call you names. They're going to say terrible things about you on social media, most of which are untrue, but they can get away with it. I just think that's disgraceful. I never entered public office because it was about beating up other people or beating them down or calling them names. It was about how do we make our communities better? How do we make this country better? And you know, I worry about the political discourse and the tone and how people are doing these things. I think we can do a much better job.
Would you think to run again?
It's not my plan, and I'm certainly not running in this next federal election in October. There are other good people who have put their names forward to run. We have good representation in Mississauga. We have good candidates running for all the political parties. So I'm not planning on running again, certainly not in this election, but I do wish all those people well that run, because I have immense respect for anybody that puts their name on a ballot, because I've been through many campaigns. I know what it's like. So if you're willing to put your name on a ballot, you're willing to run to serve your community, you're always going to have my admiration.
Well, while we're mentioning that, it's like we've noticed that many of the MPs, or it's like the candidates, they are from different background. They never served communities, and they suddenly, it's like trying to run. So what do you think of that? It's like, is it, it's like, would that help, or it's?
Well, in a perfect world, I think it would be great to have candidates who had already been involved in their community in a secular way, not just in a community of their own personal background or faith community or country of origin. I think it's good to see people volunteer for things that benefit the community at large and learn from that experience and then be candidates. But it doesn't always work that way. That's the great thing about democracy in Canada. 18 years of age, Canadian citizen, permanent resident, you can run to be a member of parliament. You can run to be the mayor. You can run to be a school trustee. Doesn't mean you have done anything in the community ever before. But you have every right to run. I think it makes you a better, in my case, member of parliament, because I had done so much in the community prior to being elected. I was well connected. I knew a lot of people in the community. I knew the agencies and the work that they were doing on the ground, particularly in the city of Mississauga. And I think that made me a better member of parliament, because my learning curve wasn't long. But I do know of people that get elected. They just happen to fluke into some way of getting elected. They're in the right place at the right time with the right political party. They've had no involvement in the community, and bang, they're now an MP or an MPP or whatever. But that's democracy. It's democracy. It's up to the voters to decide who they want to represent them at various levels of government.
And they have the right to be ambitious, right?
Listen, I would never, ever discourage someone from running for whatever reason, right? And just because you don't have the same background as I do doesn't make you a better or a worse candidate than Brad Butt was. You want to serve your community. I assume you're doing it for the right reason. I assume it's because you care. You want to see change in your community or in your country. And that's the reason that you're running, to serve and to work with people. And if that's your reason for running, then all power to you. And I would always wish candidates like that all the best.
Absolutely. So do you feel you're much better off now?
Oh, for sure. Listen, to have an experience of serving as a Canadian member of parliament, where are you ever going to get that in the world? At this stage in the history of our country, since 1867, when we became a country, there's only been about 5,400 people in the history of Canada who have served as members of parliament. So my name's on that wall up there on Parliament Hill, right, with 5,399 other great Canadians who were willing to serve their country. What a great honor to have an opportunity to have done that in my lifetime.
Absolutely.
Something I'll never forget and something I will always cherish. And I'm so glad and so pleased that the voters had faith in me in 2011 to send me to Parliament to do some work on their behalf. And I will be forever grateful.
Is there any regrets?
No, the only thing I will say is that it takes a tremendous toll on your personal life and your family life. And I guess certainly my one regret is that unfortunately during the process of being a member of Parliament, my marriage ended, which was very unfortunate. These things happen. It happens to lots of people. And I certainly don't think I paid as much attention as I should have done to both my ex-wife and my two daughters during the time that I served as an MP. So my advice to people is make sure you have the right balance in your life. Do not neglect your family life, your personal life, simply because you've been elected as an elected official at any level of government. Don't do what I did. I did do that, and I'm to blame for that. So my advice is get that right balance in your life. Do a great job as an elected official, but do a great job as a husband, a wife, a father, mother, do that part of it too and do it right.
Yeah. So how do you spend your time now?
Well, I'm the Director of Government Relations with the Mississauga Board of Trade, and I really enjoy doing that work on behalf of the business community in Mississauga and advancing issues that are important to businesses to all three levels of government. So that keeps me busy in my professional life. And as I say, I'm still involved with a number of community organizations, volunteering, which I very much enjoy. I'm still fairly active in the Streetsville community where I live and where I served as the Member of Parliament, and very much enjoy the work that I'm doing there. And like everybody else, I have hobbies and stuff that I do. I mean, I watch NFL football on Sundays and hang out with friends and have a good time like anybody else would do. And I certainly cherish the time I have with my children as well, my two daughters, who are teenagers and are busy, but it's great to have that opportunity as well to spend some more quality time with them.
Absolutely. So when we go, it's like when we go to the Legion, it's like you're there. When we go to the food bank, you're there. Go to the Rotary Club, you're there. So you name it, you're it's like everywhere. Yeah. So, and you cook well.
Well, I do it. Thank you. I do. Yes, I do cook every second Friday. The fish and chips at the Streetsville Legion. But I don't volunteer and do anything I don't enjoy or that I don't think's making a positive impact on the community. I do things because I enjoy doing them. I like working with people. I like supporting these organizations, and I like to see good things happening in my community. So that's why I do it, because otherwise I could stay at home and be by myself and do my own thing. But if I can be giving back and trying to help make our community better and stronger, I get lots of enjoyment out of that.
That's why you're successful and people love you, right? So.
Well, the one good thing is, and I say this to people too who are looking at, well, why should I volunteer? There's no real benefit to me. I have met more people. I have networked with more people. I have had more opportunities in business and in the community and in life in general because I went out there and I volunteered and I met people and I built a list of friends, and it's made me a very successful person in my own right. And certainly when I decided to enter politics, people saw that and wanted to support me, thinking I would be a good person to represent the community. That all started from volunteering. That all started from just showing up, getting involved, being a member of a service club, the Legion, community organizations. So look, I have a lot of time for people that want to volunteer and be involved, because I think you get as much out of it as you put in.
True. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, just to say congratulations to TAGTV and Gada, to you and your show Panorama. I think this is great, and I think we need as many outlets as we can to communicate with people on things that are important to them, and to get the message out about how we work together to build stronger communities. So wishing you and TAG all the best in the future, and keep up the great work.
Yes, thank you very much, Brad. It was a great pleasure, it's like having you with us today. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up until next time, have a good night.